Hello, thank you for joining me. This masterclass is going to be looking at the different clauses in English grammar and how they are used within sentences. So to be able to do this, first of all, we need to understand what a clause actually is. Let's have a look. So when we are speaking about clauses, they are groups of words and they make one complete idea. So we've already looked at letters. Letters make words. If we put a small group of words together that don't have complete meaning, they are phrases. And this is the next chunk of words where you've got a complete group of words and they make one complete idea. And when we looked at the phrases masterclass, we said that phrases, they do not have both a subject and a verb. And that is the big difference between phrases and clauses, because a clause must have a subject and it must have a verb. And the subject and the verb need to be related to each other for the clause to make complete sense. So in English, there are a few different types of clauses, and some of them have different names. So we have a main clause. This is also referred to as an independent clause. We have subordinate clauses. They are also referred to as dependent clauses. And the final type of clause that you will learn in primary school is a relative clause. And I'm not going to speak much about that today because there is a separate video that is just about relative clauses. So if you want to know more about relative clauses, have a look at the other video. So let's begin with a main clause. When we are talking about a main clause or an independent clause, it is one complete idea that makes complete sense on its own. It has a subject, it has a verb, and it might also contain some phrases within that. So if we look at the first example here, my younger sister is an absolutely amazing chef. What I have here is my sister is the subject, but this is part of a noun phrase, my younger sister. So that there is a phrase. Then I have the verb, and within this sentence, the verb is linking the younger sister to being an absolutely amazing chef. So the verb is the word is, and it is used to link the two ideas together. And then at the end of the sentence, I have another noun phrase, an absolutely amazing chef. So this main clause is also a simple sentence. It has one idea, it makes complete sense on its own. There is a subject, the sister, and there is a verb, is. Let's have a look at the second sentence then. The children were playing football in the park. So here we've got the subject, and the subject is the children. They are the people that are doing the action. In this sentence, we have a verb phrase because you need two words here to make the verb, and the verb is were playing. Okay, so that is the verb. Football is what they were playing, and then at the end there, we have another phrase in the park. It's saying where they are playing the football. And again, this main clause is also a simple sentence. It makes complete sense on its own. It has a subject, the children, and it has the verb were playing. So those are main clauses. They're also referred to as independent clauses because they make sense on their own. They don't need anything else for them to make sense. Okay, so the next group of clauses that we are going to look at are called subordinate clauses. And subordinate clauses, they are known as well dependent clauses. And the reason that they are known as dependent clauses is because they depend on the main clause for it to make complete sense. So a subordinate clause, it begins with a subordinating conjunction, and many of you at school will use either I saw a wobble or the white bus to help you remember those conjunctions. And make sure that you kind of learn the full list, because if you are using just I saw a wobble or on a white bus, that is not all of the subordinating conjunctions. There are more of them that you can use as well as those, but they are the most common conjunctions. So it begins with a subordinating conjunction. It still has a subject. It has a verb, but it needs the main clause for it to make sense. So let's have a look here. We have got the as soon as. That is my subordinating conjunction. Then I have you. You is the subject, and then the verb is have finished. So this part here, the have finished, that is the verb. But if I look at it as a complete clause, as soon as you have finished your tea, it doesn't make complete sense on its own. It would need a main clause. So as soon as you have finished your tea, you can play in the park. So you can play in the park would be the main clause that then makes complete sense together. And that would be what we call a complex sentence if you have a main clause and a subordinate clause together. Let's have a look at the next example. Because she couldn't be bothered, I have the because is my conjunction. She is the subject. And then the could not is the verb couldn't be, and then bothered is what she couldn't be. So we're looking at the negative form within that sentence. So we've got this part here as a verb, okay? So when you are looking at subordinate clauses, spot the subordinating conjunction and then see if you can work out the subject and the verb. So let's have a look at some examples here. So I'm going to use red for the main clause, blue for the subordinate clause, if there is one. And not all sentences will have a subordinate clause, but all sentences will have a main clause. Okay, so what I've got here, on Saturday morning, Jake is going to the cinema. So this part at the beginning, the on Saturday morning, that part there is actually a phrase, and it's saying when. Okay, then you've got Jake is going to the cinema. So that is the main bit of our sentence. Jake is our subject, And then we've got a verb phrase, is going. So this part is the verb, and it is in the progressive form. So both bits here, is and going, that is the verb. And then at the end there, to the cinema, that is another phrase that is showing where he is going. So all of that together, on Saturday morning, Jake is going to the cinema. That is one main clause. Okay, so if I were to highlight it, all of this bit is the main clause, but it is made up of some phrases as well. Now, the next one, if I get a high score in my test, I will be very happy. So notice that this particular sentence, it begins with if. If is a conjunction. Okay, so that tells me that there is a conjunction in there, and what it is a subordinating conjunction. So that tells me that it is a subordinate clause. So I've got my conjunction. So have I got a subject? Have I got a verb? So if I is the subject, and then if I get, that is my verb in there. A high score, that's what they're aiming to get. So that part there is that's a phrase that is a noun phrase. In my test, that is another phrase at the end there. So that part, if I get a high score in my test, that is the subordinate clause. It doesn't make sense on its own. If I get a high score in my test, it needs the next bit for it to make sense. I will be very happy. So I is the subject, and then this is written in the future tense, so it has will be. So that is my verb change. So will is part of the verb, but be is also part of the verb as well. So I will be very happy. That part, it makes complete sense on its own. So I will be very happy. That is a main clause. Okay, so you could switch the sentence around. You could say, I will be very happy if I get a high score in my test. So you can either have the subordinate clause at the beginning of the sentence, or you can have it at the end. If the subordinate clause is at the beginning of the sentence, remember that you need to have a comma after it. Okay, so let me save that part for you. And then the next bit, we'll have a look at a couple more examples. So Luca enjoys playing football. So I have Luca is my subject. Enjoys is the verb. Playing football is what he enjoys. And then I've got but. Now, but is a conjunction. But remember your different types of conjunction. But is a coordinating conjunction, and that means that it isn't part of the subordinating group. It is used in a different way. It's part of the fanboys conjunctions. And as you'll see in a minute, we are using it to link two main clauses together, because what I have here, Luca enjoys playing football, that is one complete idea on its own. The final part of the sentence, Jim prefers watching television, that part makes complete sense on its own. So that is another main clause. And we have Jim in the second part of the sentence is the subject, prefers is the verb, and watching television is what he prefers. And because this is a coordinating conjunction, it is actually a compound sentence because you've got two main clauses that are linked with a coordinating conjunction. So there isn't a subordinate clause within that sentence. It is two main clauses that are linked together. And then the final sentence, Layla wasn't at school today because she had a dentist appointment. So Layla is my subject. And she was not. That is my verb. It is in the negative form because it has a not with it. At school today, that part there, that is a phrase. Okay, so this part here is the phrase that shows where. Then I have the because. Because is a conjunction and it is a subordinating conjunction. And because it is a subordinating conjunction, it means that it is used to begin a subordinate clause. So this part at the beginning of the sentence, Layla wasn't at school today, that is my main clause. Then, because it's the start of my subordinate clause, so because she had a dentist appointment, she is the subject. And what we are doing is we are renaming Layla with a pronoun, so we're not using her name twice. She had is the verb. A dentist appointment is what she had. So this part here is a subordinate clause. And again, we could turn this around and we could say, because she had a dentist appointment, Layla wasn't at school today. And what we would need to remember if we did that is the comma after the word appointment. I hope that you have found this helpful. Feel free to watch some of the other videos. I hope that you can join me again soon. Thank you. Bye.